it's nice to be surrounded with a cast that lifts you up. I'm a 12-year-old and a 65-year-old one. One of the best things that ever happened to me in my life. You find yourself wishing that life could be more like that. Really very surprising. There's not a better time for a show like ours right now.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. Today, I have with me Neil Crone. Neil plays Ronnie Stewart on When Hope Calls. Thanks for being here, Neil.
My great pleasure, Stephanie.
I'm so excited to chat about When Hope Calls, but to also talk a little bit about your experiences leading up to When Hope Calls. I spent a bit of time on IMDb and was blown away by the previous work that you've done with your voice work, also with your improv. So I want to talk a little bit about that. Let's
Sure.
start with that voice work that you've done. Can you share with us a little bit about your experience with that and maybe a few of the projects that we might recognize?
Thank you. Yeah, I love doing voice work. It's one of my favorite things from the very beginning of my career. I grew up as a kid watching Warner Brothers and Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck, and still do, and loved them. And never dreamed as a kid that one day I might be able to voice cartoons. I was sort of blessed with the ability, sort of class clowny ability to do a bunch of different weird voices growing up in high school, public school. And then when I got an agent, these opportunities came up to work, and I had a really wonderful. I've been so blessed with my animation career. So many great shows to work on, so many fun characters, and everybody loves cartoons, right?
Yeah.
And the kind of cartoons that I do are generally very family oriented, and I very seldom get cast in the X-Men type of cartoons, right? I'm more the guy who's way up here kind of
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
So.
That's so good.
Yeah, so some of the shows, I mean, one of the big things that I have a fairly large following on, which is amazing, are the Thomas the Tank Engine shows. Um, I've been doing the voice of Gordon, the engine, for a number of years now, and I watched that show when my boys were little, and they're now in their 30s. And I was fortunate enough to be cast and to do a number of voices in the Thomas and the Magic Railroad movie, which was really a ball. I got to play the bad guy in that one. I played Diesel 10, who was the nasty guy in that cartoon. And so that's been great. Yeah, I've done Paw Patrol, of course, in the movie as well. Just a whole bunch of them going back 30 years almost.
Wow. Wow. Well, and even as you're talking, I can hear I can hear Thomas the Train. I can hear it all in my head. I mean, it's very familiar to me, and I'm sure people that are watching or listening right now can recognize it as well too. So now we can put a face with that voice. So that's pretty
Wonderful.
amazing.
Wonderful. Yeah, the fan base
So
of Thomas is like they're older guys now. They're
yeah,
like, 18 years old into their 20s and 30s.
yeah,
So,
it's crazy. Yeah.
yeah.
But that's such a great story, such a great experience, and it sounds like you knew early on what those talents were that you had, and you're like, well, we've got to tap into it, and it's been pretty cool to read about that and learn about that experience that you've had.
Well, it's just great when you're in the studio and you're doing something fun and you stop yourself and you pinch yourself and you go, "Wow, I'm getting paid to have a ball."
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
it's uh it's pretty nice. Yeah.
yeah,
And most of the
yeah.
people that work in animation are lovely people too. They're there for the right reasons.
So then, when Hope Calls, that opportunity shows up. Completely different. I mean, family oriented, of course, but completely different than that type of voice work. And so, can you talk a little bit about learning about the role of Ronnie and what interested you in that part?
Certainly, I mean, I love Ronnie Stewart. I mean, he's one of those characters where I think he's a very sweet guy. I think he's kind of bumbling. I kind of refer to myself as the comic relief in the show a little bit. But he's a nice guy, and he's flawed, of course, but he's got a heart of gold, and he's trying to do the right thing, sometimes not for the right reason, but a very harmless character, and really, he would give you the shirt off his back if he had to, and we see flashes of that in the show. We see the depth of his character and the kindness that is really at the heart of him, and I love just sort of Alfonso writes such wonderful scripts for Ronnie in terms of the goofiness that he gets up to, and
Mhm.
I'm always delighted when I get a new draft and I see what I get to do.
Yeah. So what was it like finding out there's going to be a season 2 and knowing that you would be able to come back and keep playing Ronnie?
Over the moon happy about that. I love everything about the show. I love traveling up to North Bay where we shoot. The little village that we've built in the town of Powassan is just gorgeous. Visually, it's stunning to shoot there, and we're almost always there in the summer or late fall,
Mhm.
and the colors are off the charts. Uh, there's no downside to the show. The cast is ridiculously lovely. Everybody's there for the right reasons. And it's a kind of show that, I like being a part of. I feel good about. I've done, as you say, my IMDb is full of a lot of stuff. A lot of it is stuff that I would never even watch myself. This is a show that, yeah, I do tune into and I enjoy watching.
So, between season 1 and season 2, and I'm one of those that have watched season 1 and got to learn about Ronnie back in season 1. Can you talk a little bit about the difference with Ronnie's storyline between season 1 and season 2?
I think season one, we were kind of figuring the character out a little bit as well and seeing where we could go with him. And he was just kind of more of a bumbler, I think, at that point, and sort of a little pretentious as well, really putting airs on, wanting to make the Royal Brookfield Hotel as haute as it could possibly be. So a lot of ego in there as well. And I think we've softened that. Not that he was terribly rough, but I think we've softened that going into season two. And we're focusing more on just the quirkiness of the character, his paranoia of the law, and thinking that he has a checkered past, um, and of course his relationship to Tess has always been kind of cool because he's sort of walking in her shadow and her minion more or less. So
Mhm.
I think we're heading more in that direction and exploiting more of the fun with him and giving him more moments of comedy.
It's been interesting this season because and correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like in season 1 there was quite a bit more interaction between Ronnie and Tess,
Hmm.
and there hasn't been as much this season. But it sounds like again in season 1, maybe you were just trying to establish that relationship and kind of feel where Ronnie's character needed to go.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what it was. And part of it too, is I mean, Wendy is a very busy actress, and we're trying to get a hold of her, make sure she's around for us to shoot things with. Um, and her character has changed in an interesting way too. I think she's become a little harder.
Mhm.
Um, I always kind of refer to her as Barbara Stanwyck in The Big Valley. I'm dating
Yeah.
myself there, of course, but very very a very tough, hard woman there's a heart in there,
Mhm.
um, and I think Ronnie sees that. I mean, he might be one of the few people in the show who does see it, which is why they're close. And I think it would be nice. I think there's shades of it there where it feels like Ronnie is kind of her confidant as well.
Mhm.
She can
Mhm.
say anything to him. She can talk to him about stuff.
Yeah, that I think that there was a that was established really well in season 1, and even though we haven't seen as many interactions in season 2, those little bits where they have been together, it's clear that that relationship, she could go to him, she could confide in him. And I think also with Tess, it's like even though she is, she's got that hard exterior, we know her story. We know she's running a ranch on her own. We know that her son has left. And so there's a bit of grace that I think we give her knowing that she's having to really fight and stick up for herself. And it seems natural, but at the same time, like you said, we see that heart of gold that she has as well.
Oh yeah, you can see it. I mean, even in the last few episodes, you see there's lots of moments where her maternal instinct is still there. She's
Mhm,
very sad that she can't be with her boy, can't be
mhm.
with her, and he's married and gone off, and she's lonely, I think,
Yeah,
as well,
yeah.
And Wendy plays that so beautifully.
So good. So good. We touched a little bit on your voice work that you've done, but you've got a massive career in improv and knowing how Ronnie is played and the comedy behind that. Can you talk a little bit about that history and then maybe share how you kind of work that into the character of Ronnie?
Oh, sure, thanks. Improv comedy is, without any hyperbole, one of the best things that ever happened to me in my life in terms of, developing my any kind of talent that I might have had, giving me confidence on stage, giving me a huge circle of wonderfully creative, funny, generous friends that came out of that improv world. And it launched my career. It really did. I mean, Second City hired me once. I had been working in a place called Theatre Sports in Toronto, which was a sort of a small independent improv comedy group. And it was once Second City took me under their wing and I was on main stage, I became a legitimized actor in Toronto, and a lot of doors opened up for me. And having that tool that is wonderful. I can't tell you how many times it's come in handy, whether it's for auditions or when I'm on set, even when Hope calls and I can read a script or a scene, and if I have an idea or two of something that might work to button it or make it a little funnier or whatever, I've been blessed with some really wonderful directors and producers and writers who give me that leeway. And it's a fine line. You have to
Yeah.
be careful. You don't want
Yeah.
to step on toes, but sometimes the stuff just takes it to the next level. And again, I've been very, very lucky in that people will let me do that.
Yeah. I chatted last week with Don McBrearty, and he shared that this season, when you would have some of those moments, even with Christopher Russell, that oftentimes he would say, action and have to turn his head because he knew what was coming and that he wouldn't be able to keep it together.
Don is such a great guy. One of my favorite guys. Yeah, I mean, Chris and I, we had one scene in particular that we shot in the Mountie office. It's one of my favorite scenes, where Chris has summoned Ronnie to the jail, and Ronnie, the wheels are turning, and he's thinking he'll be in Sing Sing before the end of the day, kind of thing, because his past is going to catch up to him. And it's just this lovely scene where Chris is playing me like crazy, and I'm just shrinking down in the chair and getting more and more nervous. And we shot that a bunch of different times, and we would sort of throw in little improvised dialogue here and there, and yeah, it was great. Don gave me so much wonderful latitude in that scene.
Yeah. So you had worked with Christopher Russell before in Midnight Masquerade. What was it like coming back and working with Christopher again?
Well, and again, it was years, right?
Yeah.
That movie came out a long time ago, and Chris had gotten, in my eyes, Chris has gotten bigger and stronger, and obviously much more confident too as an actor, and so it was great to see him again. He's still the same guy, still a lovely
Mhm.
guy in there,
Yeah.
but yeah, nice to catch up again, and a much larger role for him, of course, in this show. It's interesting, the difference is, when RJ was playing our first Mountie, Gabriel, and RJ's a lovely guy and he's a handsome guy, but he as big as he is, he's smaller than Chris. So when you're in a scene with Chris, especially with your Ronnie's character, who's sort of low status, it just makes it that much more imposing with this
Yeah.
mountain of a guy that you're talking to. I watch myself in scenes with the two of them. I think I come up to his shoulder pretty much.
But
I'm 5'8".
it plays really well with the way that your characters are supposed to interact, I would say.
I'm glad to hear that because I really feel like it does.
Hmm.
And he's a very taciturn guy in character.
Yeah.
So it's great when you pair him alongside the nervous, babbling Ronnie.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you been in any other projects with any of the other actors on When Hope Calls?
Well, there's a couple of like Jonathan Potts who plays Ben,
Yeah.
the shopkeeper. Jonathan and I have known each other for decades. We were both in Second City's improv classes many, many, many years ago. So he's a dear pal, and again, we have a nice chemistry, and I think it shows up in this season too a little bit. There's moments where Ben and Ronnie are just trying to figure out the new Mountie. Beyond that, I mean, a lot of the cast are newer people. I've worked with Wendy on a few other projects. I've known her for a number of years. But yeah, most of the other guys, I mean, it's weird being kind of the elder statesman in the cast.
Hmm.
Mike Copeman, I think, might be a little bit older than me. and Mike and I go back a long way. But everybody else, no, it's been new and fresh and fun. You know?
So in a moment like when Ronnie and Ben are, going to kind of hide behind the building as,
Yes.
Mountie Fletcher is coming down the boardwalk there. What's that interaction like between you and what's the actor's name again from that
Jonathan
plays Ben?
Potts. Yeah.
Jonathan. What's that interaction like knowing that you guys have worked together in the past so long as you're preparing a scene like that?
Oh, it's so great. You know, you just have such complete trust in one another. And I think we ended that scene. We shot it, I don't know how many different times, but we buttoned it with something different every time. And it's just he makes me laugh, I make him laugh, and yeah, it's just that kind of energy. I think just infuses itself into the scene, and it's fun to watch.
Oh yeah, it's so fun to watch the two of them interact. I love it because it's comedic, but it's not overly done. And even when you go back and watch it, it doesn't feel. I mean, it just feels fresh each time that you watch it.
Oh, that's good to hear it because I know that I know sometimes again coming from an improv background, you can sometimes come in huge, and
Mhm.
and the first direction you get from the director is like just pull it down a little bit. You know, that's nice to know that's working.
There's a fun moment early on in the season, I believe it's episode 2, when, Ronnie, who feels like he is, the Mountie sidekick now,
Mm,
has created a list for the town council of things, almost as if he's got an open door and he's ready
yeah.
to run with it now that he's the Mountie sidekick. Can you talk a little bit about those moments between you and Chris as you guys were shooting those? It was so fun to watch. Ronnie comes in, he exits, he goes back in. What was that like?
Again, that was just great fun because Chris just plays it so deadpan the entire
Hmm.
time, and that really makes it work. Because the more excited and the more frantic and big Ronnie's character is, the quieter Chris becomes, and that juxtaposition is so nice. Yeah, again, we shot that a bunch of times, and it was just fun to sort of bop in and out, and he would just look at me, and and just, it was just one of those great deals. I found myself sort of channeling Don Knotts in those moments.
Yes.
Again, I'm dating myself, but Don Knotts is one of my all-time heroes, and I make no bones about the fact that I'm happily stealing material from him in the show. So
Yeah. But he's a legend and he's good. So why would you not want to channel that, right?
if you're gonna steal from somebody, steal from the best, right? Exactly.
Absolutely. You know what I love about that moment and the writing is finding that balance between the comedy and the heart.
Hmm.
And Ronnie comes in with this idea of presenting a key to Mountie Fletcher, and it gets turned in a way to actually give that key to Charlotte. Can you talk about that balance of taking something that's so lighthearted and fun, and Ronnie's being a little bit I will say facetious or, trying to get his way in, right? And it turns and becomes this really sweet moment.
Yeah, I think you've really put your finger on what makes the show work. It has that at its heart. Pardon the pun, is a heart. I mean, and it's really about connection and the stuff that's important in life. And as goofy as Ronnie is, and as sort of around the periphery that he always is, he finds those moments. We find moments for him where he gets it too, and he understands what's important. The Christmas show was a big turning point, I think, for Ronnie's character, where we again Alfonso wrote this lovely scene where Ronnie gets it. He realizes what these orphans, what these kids would really like. And rather than buying this fancy roadster that he wanted, he takes that money and he plays Santa Claus. And that was so fun to play
Yeah.
and to expose that part of him. Um, somebody really having a heart and understanding what's important in life.
Yeah.
I love being part of a show that has that at its heart. It's great.
It's really fun. I have, followed Alfonso's work for quite a while, even back when he was on When Calls the Heart and was the showrunner for seasons 5, 6, and 7. Big fan of his work. So it's been fun to chat with him and learn about, this project that is like his baby. What's it like to work with Alfonso? I know you guys have known each other for a while.
He's terrific. I mean, again, from a I always my thing is it always starts with the writing. If you have a great script, it can only get better. If you have a bad script, it can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
There's no amount of acting or directing that can make it watchable. It has to be good on paper first. And Alfonso gets that. And speaking personally, of course, I mean, I know he's told me on a number of occasions that he likes writing for my character, and that makes me feel wonderful.
Oh yeah.
And the trust that we have, again, every time I get a new draft of an episode, I can't wait to see what, he's got me doing in there. And he's also great. He's very, very generous in terms of letting me improvise a little bit. And he lets me know if something's working or it's not working, and and he's great that way. So
Yeah.
he's a treat.
It's got to be amazing to have that kind of trust relationship where, you've got that freedom, but then there's that honesty of like what's working and what's not working.
Yeah, I mean, we're both professionals and we respect each other's craft. And so I certainly would always defer to him in terms of the final word on things, in terms of the script. Absolutely. And
Hmm.
I think he gives me that same kind of respect, which is
Yeah.
very welcome. Yeah.
Episode 4, we see Ronnie, who has to quickly learn how to be an auctioneer, which, I mean, honestly, when you think about it, it should be Ronnie who should learn how to be the auctioneer. Can you talk a little bit about that moment? I even loved where he's going around like serving people and he's practicing as he's serving.
It just it's just classic Ronnie, where it's like a chance to be the center of attention, and to have some kind of importance, power even over influencing major things in the town. He lives for this stuff,
Yeah.
which is great. It was fun to shoot because there was a lot of extemporaneous dialogue going on. We're inside shooting the different people who were at the auction, but meanwhile Ronnie's still yammering up at the podium, right? So there was a lot of talking going on and on and on. So yeah, fun to shoot.
Had you ever done any auctioneering before?
I have done some for charity things. If I was hosting a charity
Yeah.
gala, very often, at the end of the evening, they'll have a big live auction and
Yeah.
whatnot.
Yeah.
I've had to do that every now and then to sort of help out. So it's a little bit of experience, not too
That's interesting. I was like, did he have to learn that or did he actually come in with that skill? So we'll add auctioneer to your resume as well, then, right? One thing that I love about When Hope Calls is that there are some amazingly strong women on this
much.
show. And you've talked about your dynamic with Michael Fletcher, but when we have characters like Nora who can hold her own, and then Hannah comes in episode 3, and that dynamic as she comes up to the hotel desk to get a room, and Ronnie's totally checked out, not realizing Hannah needs help with her luggage. And then, of course, Tess. What's it like to have a character, Ronnie, who is, kind of paired up against or with these strong women?
It's fun. I mean, they bring so much to the project, of course. I mean, Hanukkah is one of my favorite people. I mean, she's
Oh,
just
yeah.
so smart and so funny and so beautiful. I'd never worked with Cindy prior to this season, and she's been an absolute treat. She's so warm and friendly and comes into the thing with like zero ego, and it's about doing the best job possible, and it's been wonderful to watch her on camera as well. And Wendy Crewson, I mean, you're not going to find a nicer individual in the business, nor or a more talented individual. Their range is great, and they all get to play fun stuff. I mean, Hannah can do comedy as well as anybody, but there's love interests in there and all that stuff. So it's nice to be surrounded with a cast that lifts you up like that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
You mentioned Hanukkah, who plays Maggie, and we've got in the middle of the season an opportunity where Jon McLaren's character, who is Sam,
Mhm.
decides as he's trying to figure out what he's going to do now that he has struck it rich, decides to go to work at the hotel. And so that dynamic, it's like Ronnie has these little moments during the season with so many of the different characters. So what was it like that dynamic working with John as Sam is trying to figure out if the hotel business is what he needs to be doing or not?
John is delightful. I had never met him prior to the show. We met at a dinner, over the summertime before we started shooting, and I didn't know him from Adam, frankly. And I've just been so wonderfully surprised by him. He's just a great guy. He's very friendly. He's very accomplished, but he's also very funny. And in those scenes, especially that episode where Maggie has made these horrible Bakewell tarts. It was so much fun to watch John shoot the stuff and doing a lot of physical comedy,
Yeah,
stuffing
yeah.
these things into his mouth, and he jumped in, with both feet, and did a beautiful job. He's a terrific guy, and he's
Yeah.
become a very good friend, which is nice.
Yeah, he was great. I got to visit with him earlier in the season, and just it was great to hear, as he's coming into play Sam now, how he's embraced that character so much. And
Mm,
to have to, shift from one Sam in a at season one to now,
yeah.
what a nice transition. He's done a fantastic job.
Oh, he really has. He's only going to get better.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Yeah.
I was definitely yelling at the screen as he keeps shoveling in all the cookies. Just throw them behind the counter. Oh my goodness. So you mentioned that one of your favorite seasons, you mentioned scenes this season, you mentioned that earlier on. What would you say has been your favorite scene this season?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah. I would probably go back to that scene. I think it was the scene with Chris in the Mountie office, just getting to go through all that goofiness, yeah, and I love doing two-handers too because you really feel like you're acting, you're having
Yeah.
fun, and there's a lot more to do, and you're really engaged in the scene. Big scenes sometimes are as important as they are. They're difficult because there's so much coverage, and you're doing the scene all day long. And so it's hard to keep your energy up and to stay engaged. But with that little two-hander scene, it's great.
Mhm.
It's kind of like theater.
Yeah. Well, and you're referring to the scene where Ronnie thinks that he's going to be in trouble
Yes,
over
arrested even.
stealing
Yeah,
over stealing the Mountie hat,
yes.
which I was so good because, like you said, Ronnie's just like melting into what could possibly happen to me. And then Michael's on the other side of it, but not even really saying a word.
No,
And it played out so well. It was a wonderful way to introduce Michael Fletcher to Brookfield,
yeah.
um, to really showcase his character as well.
And when he's sitting there and he's twirling the jail keys in his hand, that was Chris's idea,
That
and
is great.
it's perfect because
Yes.
it's kind of mesmerizing, and it's just so emblematic of going to prison, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Can you share any fun behind the scenes moments that happened this season?
Oh man, we have a lot of fun on set. That's for darn sure. And offset. There was one moment where we were shooting the meeting of the town council scene, and it was
Yes.
myself, um, Hanukkah, um, and Jonathan Potts and Mike Coleman were there as well, I think. And we were. I had dialogue. I was coming in. I was standing up, and I was saying something. And our first AD, Rocco was sitting up on the steps going upstairs in the hotel. He was off camera, but sitting up there and watching the scene. And in a pause in my dialogue, I guess he shifted his weight or moved a foot, and and it made the floorboard squeak, but it sounded exactly like somebody farted. And I lost it, and of course, then I look over at Jonathan Potts, and Jonathan and I have this, farting things just make us crack up. And when made eye contact with him, and we both lost it, and it took us I don't know how many takes to get it back together again. It's just one of those things. Once you start laughing, you're done, right? And
Oh man.
it was just, yeah, I'm a 12-year-old in a 65-year-old body.
Well, you got to have a good time, right?
You do.
Yeah.
We have a lot of fun on set. There's a lot of downtime on set. Not everybody knows that there's a lot of waiting. And this is a great cast because we sit and we talk a lot, or we play games while we're sitting in our chairs. We play goofy trivia games and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Helps pass the time, and we all bond, and it keeps
Uh-huh.
the energy up. So that's all nice.
Yeah. Who's the trivia winner typically?
Oh, it depends on what we're playing. Cindy's very bright. She's very sharp, and again, I find a lot of the cast because they're just that much younger than me.
Yeah.
Their pop culture knowledge is like massive, right? And I'm kind of left going, well, what about Casablanca?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Sarah Fisher was sharing with me that her and Nick would just go back and forth quite a bit on movies and quotes and things. So
Yes, yes, a
you got to
lot
have
of
a good,
that, a lot of
yeah,
that.
absolutely. All right. So we are coming up on the last episode of season 2.
Mhm.
So I'm going to ask you, is there 3 words that you could come up with to describe the last episode?
Oh, 3 words. Uh, Really very surprising,
Oh,
I will say. Or
oh,
maybe even make that a really very scary, even.
oh.
I can go
So we
there.
could say surprising and scary, right?
Good. Yes.
Here we
Yeah.
go.
It's a real turn of events, especially for this show, I think.
Mm,
Yeah.
hmm. And the last 20 seconds of the finale, how, and I know that Alfonso is really big on emotion. So,
Mhm.
what emotion are fans going to be experiencing the last 20 seconds of the finale?
I don't think, terror is too strong of a word, really.
Yeah.
If you are invested in any of our characters, and I'm sure our viewers are, you're in for a ride.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's exciting.
Hmm.
Wow. Okay, so I've been asking everybody if they could take one modern thing back with them to Brookfield, what would they take? So what would you take?
As Ronnie Stewart?
Or as Neil. Like
Oh, boy.
I can give you a few examples, which I think you'll find kind of humorous. So Chris is taking back a refrigerator because he's got to have something to put the steaks in, correct?
Hmm. Hmm.
John's taking back a coffee pot.
Right.
I think she was back and forth. Think she landed on like a crepe maker, if my memory serves me correct.
Oh, for
She wanted her
Ronnie.
cell phone at first, but then she was like, who am I going to be able to talk to? So why would I
That's
take
right.
my
Yeah,
cell
that's not
phone
gonna
back,
work.
right?
That's not gonna work. Ronnie might like one of those battery operated lint things. Sort of takes just so he looks, picture
Yes.
perfect and crisp every day at the front desk. Yeah.
Oh.
That or a microwave. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Well, in keeping with everybody else, I said, eventually the whole cast could have like their own kitchen set up ready to
Yes,
go with everything. But I
absolutely.
do like that you're looking out for Ronnie when it comes to making sure that he looks meticulous and ready to go,
Mhm.
right?
Yes, yes.
What is something that people might be surprised about Brookfield or working on that set?
It's sometimes very cold. You can't always see it because it's shot so beautifully and lit so beautifully. But we're in North Bay,
Yeah.
and when we get into the fall, some of the mornings are pretty nippy,
Yeah.
and we're all very grateful for our thermal underwear underneath all of
Yeah.
our period clothing. Yeah, that's something that we don't always see. And if we're shooting in the early spring, we get black flies up there as
Oh
well. So
gosh.
you're shooting a scene and something's in your eye. You're trying to get rid of that. But yeah, sometimes in the morning it can be quite nippy. There's no question.
Well, and it's interesting because you do study even the ladies' outfits, and as a viewer of When Calls the Heart myself, we don't see as many of the sweaters on the ladies, but I've noticed that on When Hope Calls, several of them are often wearing sweaters more often. And so I'm sure that's because of the weather.
Yeah. Well, again, when Calls to Heart shoots in BC, I think in a much more temperate zone.
Hmm. Hmm.
But yeah, we're in the fall and it's stunningly beautiful and the air is gorgeously crisp and clear. So you get the camera loves it. But yeah, it can be a little chilly sometimes.
So, Neil, you do such a fantastic job of bringing the creativity to us through Ronnie. But I'm curious, what is something that inspires you creativity wise, so creatively?
Oh, wow. I love to read. Reading is one of the big things that fires my imagination up.
Yeah.
I could, and I have spent entire days on the couch
So
reading
jealous.
a great story. It's
Yeah.
one of my passions. And I spend a lot of time in the outdoors, in nature. I live in a rural area where there's a beautiful forest nearby, and I have dogs. I have three dogs, and so we
Hmm.
spend a lot of time
Mm.
out in the forest. And I'm convinced that's very
Oh,
important
yeah.
in terms of
Yeah.
keeping balance and nurturing yourself.
So, what's something you've been reading most recently that we
I'm
need to go
currently
that we need to go
what am I
buy?
reading? I am reading. Oh, it's what's the story right now? I'm reading some trashy fiction right now, believe it or
Yeah.
not. Yeah, I am. Sometimes I do. I go back and forth from nonfiction to like the classics. Like,
Mm.
my favorite book in the world is To Kill a Mockingbird. I probably read
Oh,
it
yeah.
4 times. And then every now and then, I'll just dip into some really mindless,
Mindless.
goofy stuff. Yes, this one's about a crash, and it's I'm only about a chapter in, but there's some woman that's had a car crash and something bad has happened. It starts up and the beginning of the story is she's in the middle of murdering somebody, but she doesn't know why. So it's like, okay, I'm in, you know.
So, how do you find the trashy fiction? Do you just like get on and just like hit? Do you type in trashy fiction or?
You can do that. I learned years ago. I had colon cancer many years ago, and thankfully I'm perfectly healthy now. But I had a lot of downtime in between my chemo and radiation and stuff, and
Yeah.
so and I was so tired, I really couldn't rally the strength to read literature or anything that required mindfulness.
Oh, yeah.
And so I almost did that. I says, what would you read if you were, you were having chemo, whatever, what would you, and a bunch of these books came up that were just they were good thick books, so there was lots to them, but
Yeah.
they went at like 50 miles an hour, and it was always something happening,
Yeah.
and so you can Google anything these days, and you'll get an answer.
That's pretty cool though that you took, a situation like that and, out of that comes this experience with those books and just, keep it lighthearted, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It was just I just wanted something to take my mind off of
Mhm.
feeling funny, and it was
Yeah.
perfect, you know.
I get it. I'm a big nonfiction reader myself, but when I go to the beach, I'm
Yeah,
reading trashy fiction.
yeah, of course.
So if we do get a season 3, do you have any ideas or hopes for Ronnie?
Oh, who knows? I mean, I would love to see him uh, try to navigate a relationship with
Oh, yeah.
somebody. That would be very interesting.
Mhm.
Um, God knows what that would look like, because he's older, and I think he's been single probably all his life.
Yeah.
So it'd be kind of fun to see, who could possibly
Yeah.
fall in love with a guy who is so self-absorbed. Um, but that might be fun. I think that'd be
Yeah.
kind of a neat place to go, or even his relationship with kids is interesting too, because he likes children. He doesn't quite know how to relate to them, but that would
Yeah.
be something. His heart is certainly there as well.
Yeah.
So
I love both of those ideas because it's like Ronnie's figured out how to be in control in these pockets that we've seen him in. And I feel like in both of those situations, he would be absolutely out of control.
totally,
And that
yeah,
would be so fun to watch.
yeah. You just watch him kind of falling apart a little bit, yeah. But good for
But
him.
we've,
Yeah.
yeah. And we would still have those moments for the hearts to come into play. And
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
I love
Maybe he'll
that.
fall into a ready-made family, and he'll meet some lovely widow or somebody, who's got two or
Yeah.
three kids.
I love that. That's a great idea. This show is rooted in hope, kindness, and connection. So, what does it mean to you to be a part of something like that?
It's so important, it's my wife and I had this conversation the other day, because she's grown so tired of, there seems to be this insatiable appetite that TV viewers have for, violence and gore and medical
Hmm.
drama and all this stuff, but I think at the heart of most people, they want to see stuff that resonates with them on a certain level. And when you have a show, when you see people caring for each other, being kind to one another, acting honorably, acting with morally, um, that does resonate with you, and you find yourself wishing that life could be more like that. I
Yeah,
think I think most of us feel that way.
yeah,
Even the most hardened individual can watch something, and if there's a tender moment, it resonates. And so
yeah,
I'm happy to be part of something like that. There's not nearly enough of that, I think, on television. So I feel good about that. If somebody recognized me as Ronnie Stewart, I would feel very good about that. Yeah.
absolutely. So, to wrap it up, what is something, and you've kind of shared that already a little bit, what do you hope that we as fans take away from this season?
Oh, I hope firstly, I hope we entertain you. We make you laugh a little bit, we make you cry a little bit, maybe, and make you feel, and feel good,
Yeah.
and embrace the things about that are wonderful about being a human being. And human beings are marvelous individuals. And we live in a world right now where, oh my goodness, North America is so polarized
Yeah.
and so full of anger and vitriol and stuff. And so I think there's not a better time for a show like ours right now.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's a soft landing for everybody.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, that's what I hope you take. I hope you watch our show and you come away and you go, wow, I feel better.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It
And
reminds you, when you see all of these different characters and they all, even though they're characters, they all have these lives that they lead, but yet at the core of it, they're more alike than they are different. And
mm,
it should remind us of the same thing. Hopefully, as we see those characters, that there's so much that we have in common, that we appreciate if we can just kind of focus in on those things.
yeah, that's a brilliant way of putting it. Really, it is. It is. It's the human family, right? Yeah,
Hmm.
we're
Hmm.
much more alike than we are different. Yeah, very
Yeah.
well said.
Yeah. Well, Neil, it's been fantastic to talk with you.
Likewise, thank you, Stephanie. The time has flown by. I've had an absolute ball. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
And we're crossing our fingers for season three.
Oh, we sure are.
Hopefully, we get some sort of a good announcement soon. We've
Mm.
got the season finale coming up. We're excited. And so we've got, what were the two big words that you gave us again? So
It's scary and
scary.
and surprising.
There we go. Scary and surprising. We're ready for it. Thanks so much. I appreciate this chat, and it was good to meet you, and all the best. So,
Thank you,
bye
Stephanie.
bye.
Let's do it again.
Absolutely. All right. Bye
Cheers.
bye.